Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
How's it going?
Good. How's that for you and Ben? Anyone joining us right now? Like weather, and I guess you're in Knoxville. Like
Yeah,
y'all.
rain here. We're avoiding whatever gross weather is in Middle and West Tennessee, thank goodness. But our staff in Memphis has definitely been dealing with it.
I assume there's like a little glaze outside my home here in Nashville, but nothing like terrible, I don't think. So
Yeah,
for joining us, I hope y'all are staying safe and sound on depending on where you are in the state.
yeah, definitely. To all the students that are joining us, I'm sure there's people from places in the state where it's not going so swell. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Thanks for hopping on this week, guys. Thanks for hopping on and listening to us. We're here for another FAFSA Q&A. We're here to answer your questions about FAFSA, financial aid, Tennessee Promise, college, anything along those lines. We are here to answer those. So thanks for hopping on, and thanks again to Jason from TSAC for taking the time this week to just be here and share his expertise. So if you guys have those questions, type those in. You can put them in the chat. You can put them in the questions box, and Jason and I will answer your questions live and provide you some feedback. So Jason, thanks for hopping on with us.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, as we have done typically in these lives, I think we're going to start it off by letting Jason just share some of his expertise and lend a look into his brain in terms of the FAFSA and the process that students are taking to file the 2022-2023 FAFSA. Again, every student that's on here, you have to have that done by March 1st. So we are less than a month till the deadline. So very, very important to be getting that done ASAP. But I think, Jason, this week, in the past 2 weeks, if you've joined us, we started off by talking about the deadline extension, which was obviously a big piece of news. And then last week, we talked about best practices, 3 things that you thought were your favorite tips. But this week, I think we should focus on the other end of that. I know for definitely in my experience, when I'm helping students file FAFSAs, it's really more about trying to avoid certain things, trying to avoid this mistake that I know will eventually make this process harder in the long run if I don't get this right. So I wanted you to share maybe your top 3 easy to avoid, but easy to make mistakes that students should be on the lookout for as they're filing.
Yeah. So Ben, great question. I do have 3 again this week. And before I go into them, I think it's important for me to share, Ben, like you just said, we want you to avoid these, but understand that mistakes happen and they are correctable. So guys, if you make one of these mistakes, your FAFSA is correctable. So here are my 3. First, actually the first 2 relate to the student demographics section of the FAFSA.
Okay.
Education screen. Ben, you know these 2 questions. First question, student, what degree are you pursuing during the 22-23 school year, right? And guys, I know some of you may be high school seniors, some of you may be continuing college students, but you're asked this question every year. The response to avoid is the professional degree, right? Or master's, doctoral. I think the language is professional degree that's used. Guys, some of you are going to be doctors, lawyers, what have you, and that's awesome, but baby steps first. We are all pursuing initially either a first bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or a certificate or diploma. So again, make sure you select among those options. Avoid the professional degree.
Yep. That's great advice. And I feel like that's often trivialized when students are filing. They just don't know how to answer that. So that's good. What's 2?
Number 2, and 2 questions below on the same screen. What is your college grade level? And Ben, forgive me, I may have those backwards. It doesn't matter. But same screen. What is your college grade level, right? Same thing. If you're a high school senior, I think, Ben, you and I always coach all of our students, you should select never attend at first year. For our continuing students, right, it's second year, third year, whatever. Yet again, the aim to avoid is that you are a graduate/professional student. Right. And Ben, from a high school perspective, I think our seniors see that word graduate.
Yeah.
They're thinking, well, I will be a high school graduate, but folks, that is a college graduate. So yet again, avoid the graduate/professional grade level option.
Yeah. Why is that? Why do you think they should avoid that?
Forgive me. And actually, in both cases, for the grade level and the degree question, guys, if you select that you are a professional graduate degree seeking student or grade level, you're not going to be considered for financial aid, at least from us, right? Ben, you and me.
Right.
You're not going to be considered, at least initially, for Pell Grant, Hope Scholarship, Tennessee Student Assistance Award, Tennessee Promise, etc. Again, you can correct this, but those things, if you're not being awarded money, and Ben, you and I see this all the time, it could be because you accidentally said, I am a graduate student. And unfortunately, folks, foreshadowing here, for those of you that do pursue a master's or doctorate in a few years, unfortunately, there's not a lot of aid out there other than student loans. So that's foreshadowing. Take advantage of free college when you can, because once you get to your master's or doctorate, there's not many scholarships out there for you.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for clarifying that. So, guys, thanks for hopping on. I see we have some new ones in here. Guys, get your questions in. You can type them into the chat box in here. You can put them in. There's a little question mark down at the bottom. Type those in there. Jason and I will answer your questions live. What's your third one? What's your third mistake to avoid?
Yeah, I'll show my little post-it card just in case anyone wants to see it again. The third one, I think this relates to the income sections of the FAFSA. For our students who are dependent, right, they're going to have to provide parent information. Let me define dependent. So students in Section 3, you're asked 13 questions, yes or no. For most of our 17 to 23-year-old students, you're going to answer all those questions no, which means FAFSA now considers you dependent. You need to provide your parents' information for Sections 4 and 5. Ben, in Section 5, the income section, ideally, you and I want our parents to use the data retrieval tool, but some can't.
Right.
Those that can't, the question we see misanswered the most is the income tax question. Mm-hmm. And because, so what is your income tax? I think some people, when they read that, they stop after the word income. And what do they put? They yet again put their income in, as opposed to looking at specifically line 22 from their tax return and reporting, quote, the income tax that they, quote, were obligated to pay. Then the issue here is, parents, and I actually got this email earlier. I had a parent that indicated that, they made $50,000 in 2020, yet they also reported $50,000 in their income tax. Folks, that's not going to be the case.
Right.
And so that's the mistake that's often made. And it's, I guess, Ben, how to avoid these mistakes. Again, students, parents, carefully read each question, and especially in the income sections, it'll tell you where to look exactly on the tax form. And so if you had taken the time and looked at line 22, you should have reported the right figure, as opposed to maybe stopping at the word income and just reading.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, and it kind of leads me to a piece of advice that I would give the students is, if you were to go to TennesseeAchieves.org/FAFSA, if you go to collegeforten.org/FAFSA, any of those websites, one thing you're going to see is that we recommend collecting your 2020 tax return information. And the reason why is, to Jason's point, when you're filing, it's better to know this information when you're entering your parents' income, as opposed to trying to guess. Because if you guess and it's wrong, you might be selected for financial aid verification. And it's just a process that you can try to avoid if you just collect those 2020 tax documents ahead of time. That way that you have everything that you need to file right there. And Jason mentioned the IRS data retrieval tool, which in a lot of cases is really helpful, but it's not a perfect tool. It doesn't always work exactly as you hope it will. So you still have to provide some information. So you still, in a lot of cases, need that 2020 tax return. So I just say, before you file, just tell your parents the day or 2 days before to either get on their email and try to find that PDF that they can download that has the 2020 tax return. I know, for example, my wife and ours is through TurboTax. So all you have to do is go log into TurboTax and find it there. And it just depends on obviously each parent situation is a little bit different, but tracking that information down before you file oftentimes can help you avoid making some of these mistakes. Another one that I often think about that also always creates an interruption for a student is if they don't select the correct state of residence for their parents or for them. Jason, what's the question number? 17, is that right?
It's 18. And
18.
As you even say that, like, guys, understand when you're doing the FAFSA, the questions are actually numbered on the FAFSA. It's actually been, as you know, if you review your student aid report after the fact from FAFSA, it's question 18, that state of legal residence. You're right. That's a big one as well.
Yeah. Make sure you put Tennessee on there, because if you put any other state, if you just select the top one, Alabama, I think pops up first. If you put the first state that you see, then Jason and TSAC, the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation, and THEC, they don't receive your FAFSA at all. So you're not going to be eligible for any in-state aid because you're not listing Tennessee as your state of residence. So that oftentimes creates a problem for students much later than now. So it'll be like in the summer, and they're applied to their college. They're making all this great progress towards enrollment in the fall, and then financial aid is asking them to pay for their classes, and they're like, why? I thought I was eligible. I thought I'd done all of these things right. And it's because it's literally one question. If you list the wrong state of residence, you would be, so there's a question, why would you do that? Accident, I assume. Absolutely. It's an accident. I mean, in most of these cases, it's an unintentional accident.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, and it is, right? But the other thing, I think where you and I see it, though, maybe to some of our new residents that maybe just moved in the state the
right.
last two, to Christine's question there, like that's one of those two that I think how the FAFSA ask the question, like sometimes they may be even questioning, like, hold on, but I just moved down from Michigan or Kentucky, right, whatever, like 2 months ago. Am I actually a legal resident of Tennessee yet? And generally speaking, Ben and I, you and I think just say, listen, if you now live in Tennessee, yep, and high school in Tennessee, for example, you're a Tennessee resident.
Right. Yep. If you want to use Tennessee Promise, and you've got to put Tennessee on there so that we can be getting you eligible for in-state aid for sure, in-state tuition. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much all that I have and Jason has as far as trying to avoid these kind of common mistakes. Another one that I would mention maybe is just when you're creating, for those of you that are filing for the first time, double, triple, quadruple check your social security number when you're creating your FSA ID. Because if you create your FSA ID with the wrong social security number, it's just not great. You're going to have to start over from the beginning. And no one wants to do that. So yeah, just double check that.
Ben, right. It's not the end of the world if you do that.
Right.
Your life will be a lot better off if you avoid that. That's a great one. Just thinking through this, I don't know if this is so much a mistake, but one thing that I think our teams are hearing more and more, guys, it's that idea of at the end of the FAFSA, the student needs to electronically sign with a username and password, and a parent will need to do so as well, assuming, again, the student is required to provide parent information. And Ben, for whatever reason, like over the last week, we're getting quite a few phone calls to our FAFSA hotline, thankfully, that are saying, Jason, we're getting an error on our FAFSA, like from our counselor, like what's up? And it's like, well, the student didn't sign or the parent didn't sign. And what I hear back is, well, I signed, I didn't know they had to. And again, the student has to create a username and password. One parent has to create a username and password that acts as their signature. So just, that's not so much a mistake, but it's something that has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be signed to be processed, and that's the end goal. The last step is to have it processed. So you have to get both signatures on there for sure. Another reason why I say to write down that username and password somewhere, so that when you get, say you start your FAFSA one day, you get interrupted, you don't finish it that day, and you go back to file it in a few days, and you may have forgotten what password you used for your FSA ID, and now you're in trouble. So it's better to write those things down so that you can avoid having to try to reset your password even just days after you've created it if you forgot what password you used. But yeah, definitely good advice. I know that I've ran into a couple of students who have had no problems with the FAFSA at all in terms of filing online until that signature piece too, and they've ran into some errors. Getting that parent signature to go through, and the app seems to be the best way to go on your mobile device. So
yeah. That's a good point. Very good point.
All right, guys. Well, if y'all don't have any questions, that's all that I have. Jason, anything else you want to add?
I think we're good. Maybe a reminder for those. I mean, I guess it's random. I think we're moving this to the afternoon next Friday. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to try at 2 o'clock. For those of you that aren't able to hop on at noon, I know there were some questions about doing it in the middle of the school day, so we're going to go later in the day next week just to try to see if we might capture a little bit different audience. But yeah, definitely. And remember, guys, you got to get your FAFSA filed 2022, 2023. One last thing I would say, one mistake to avoid. Don't file the incorrect year's FAFSA. Very easy to do. You can log in there and accidentally file last year's FAFSA. And we send a communication today to students that have filed the wrong FAFSA. Don't make that mistake. File 2022, 2023.
And it's funny. I mean, right, Ben, you and I could do this all day. Maybe one additional to that is also, guys, make sure as you're submitting that 22, 23 FAFSA, after you enter your username and passwords, you actually click the Submit FAFSA Form button, and that see a confirmation screen that says, congratulations, Ben, congratulations, Jason, congratulations, whomever, because that confirms that it's been submitted. And that's another, Ben, to your point about submitting the wrong one, but then I've seen a lot that they've gotten all the way through, signatures applied, but they didn't click the Submit My FAFSA button. So that's another one to maybe end on.
Yeah, it is a little bit misleading. I think you get to the end of it, maybe not misleading, but it's a little confusing. It kind of feels like you're done, but you're not. So yeah, the number one thing that I always tell students is get your confirmation email. If you have your confirmation email, you know that you've followed all the steps and you're done. But if you have not received a confirmation email from Federal Student Aid saying that you have successfully submitted your 2022-2023 FAFSA, something's not right, and you need to get in touch with us so that we can make sure that we get everything submitted. Great. I think that is the right place to end it on. So, Jason, I appreciate you for taking the time. I know this is a little bit shorter of one, but I think that's okay. And so if you guys have any questions after this, feel free to shoot us a DM here on Instagram, and we will get you the answer that you need.
Happy Friday, Ben. Happy Friday.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Stay warm.
See ya.